community care actual slide presentation the pastor usually does. He's usually the one that presents this at the churches and stuff. I put it together, and he's the one that takes care of the presentation. We are actually going to record this. That way, people that come into community care later in the year, we can send straight to the website, to YouTube, in order to watch the video and see the slides and kind of get a foundation of community care. We did the same thing with pastors 2 weeks ago whenever he introduced community care. So I'm going to fly through the first part because he basically already covered it. It is the kind of more the inspiration of community care. If you go to in your Bibles, if you had those, and went to Matthew chapter 5, it goes through and it tells us what God expects us to be as Christians in Matthew chapter 5. In verses 3 through 12, it tells us that we should be happy Christians. It talks about blessed, it's the Beatitudes. We should be happy Christians. Then in verses 13 through 16, which is our main focus of community care, it talks about being helping Christians, and then the rest of the chapter talks about being holy Christians. And rather than preaching a sermon, I'm going to skip right over all of that and just tell you that we're going to focus on that second aspect of being helping Christians. We use the verse, Matthew 5:16, as kind of the theme verse for community care, which is, let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. You see, we dissect and define some of these words to figure out how we approach community care. And it's yielding our light for the Lord to use in front of anybody that we come into contact with, or in plain view of those we come into contact with. The other verse that we use all the time is Jude 22, and of some have compassion, making a difference. We want to see a change in people. That's the goal of community care. It's not only to change us, but to help change others as well. So what is community care? You'll hear Pastor use this sentence describing community care. He's got it memorized. I do not. Community care uses the tool of Christ-like love to make an eternal difference in the life of the community around us. We're taking the love of Jesus to try and make a difference in Latrobe and Derry and the surrounding areas. What's the purpose of community care? Anybody who's been around the church for the past few years knows that we have a threefold purpose in everything that we do. The first purpose is loving God. How does community care help us to love God? It causes us to yield our time and our resources. There's many times that we ask for help, sacrificial giving, things like that. And obviously coming on Tuesday nights is a time as well, a way to love God. We grow together. How do we grow together? Fellowship and discipleship. One of my favorite parts of community care is to hear the stories when people come back from knocking on doors. You hear the stories, and it tends to be that the people in our church get more blessed out of community care than our community does. It's an amazing experience to watch as people come back and share the stories of knocking on doors or making some follow-up visits, how God has worked. And it's a great time of fellowship. And it's a great time of discipleship. We try and pair people up. A lot of our teenagers go with somebody who's older, and we pair them up with somebody who's older who can take a chance to teach them and disciple them along the way. And then, of course, community care is about serving others, and we do that through prayer and actual care for them. So how can I make a difference? This is the key focus of community care. What can you do? Number 1, daily prayer. Number 2, weekly participation. And number 3, occasional volunteer work. So we're going to take those 3 aspects of community care and teach you how you can make a difference in community care. First of all, daily prayer. It is important that you keep a copy of the prayer requests that you collect. If you go door to door, knock on a door, and you make a note on one of the sheets, they're a carbon copy on purpose, so you keep the yellow copy. That is for you to take home, put it in your own personal prayer book, prayer journal, keep a stack, however you organize your prayer life. That's what the yellow copy is for. The white copy comes here, gets put in the black bin in the back there, so that we can put that into our system to keep track of it. But we want you to pray for those prayer requests every day. It's important that you're involved in the prayer cycle. It can't be just Pastor and I praying through this list, because if prayer is going to make a difference, we all should be praying. So we want a daily prayer requests that we've collected. The upcoming community care opportunities, you should be praying for the next Tuesday that we have community care. Throughout the summer, there's many events that go on. We have VBS Flyer Blitz and things like that. We have a lot of things going on. James, could you come get my phone and answer that? And it's on. Go ahead and take it out and see. Maybe get Pastor to help you. There's a lot of flyer blitzes, things like that going on. You want to make sure that you're praying for community care and going out and reaching. We have a lot of times, there was guys out earlier today in community care mowing some lawns. They've been out through the community care program taking care of people's properties. So always ways to be praying for community care and praying for us to bear fruit that remains. People are sitting in the pews of our church as a result of community care. That is fruit that remains. They got saved. They've been baptized. They've joined the church. Bearing fruit that remains is the ultimate goal. We want to see people get saved. We want to see people get to know Jesus. That's a reason we are trying to show them Jesus. Weekly participation. Attend all organizational meetings. This obviously being the first one. It's the big one. Beyond today, be here on time. If you can get here on time, be ready to go. Pastor usually gives some words of advice, some words of direction. There are times, especially late in the summer, where we try and make it quick to get out there because otherwise it'll get dark on us. So try and make sure you're on time. And here for the organizational side of things, engage in outreach assignments. When you're given an assignment, actually do it. There are times, and one of the sheets in the backpack there, before you leave, if you have opportunity, you just hold on to that. If you have opportunity, you can stop and fill it out. It's the actual volunteer form. If you're able to bake cookies, if you're able to deliver some groceries to somebody, if you're able to whatever, there's a list of 20, 25 things back there. If you're able to do those things, check it off and let us know. We can always use help. There's Pastor and I are only two, and we have a school that we're running throughout the week, so we can always use help taking care of some of these requests throughout the course of the week. Maybe even just as simple as giving somebody a ride to the doctor's office. We just need help, so whatever you can do. And then he mentioned it, report detailed results. You cannot be over-detailed. The success is in the details. You've probably heard that phrase. If you've been in the corporate world, business world whatsoever, the success is in the details. You cannot over-communicate. The more information that you give us, the more information we can pass on to the next person, the easier it is for them to make good, solid contact with somebody. So make sure you're communicating very well. Exact street house numbers that you stopped on or started on or whatever. As much detail as you can give. And I am the detail guy. Pastor is not. Pastor's the big vision guy. I'm the detail guy. So it drives me crazy if I don't get details. So please make my life easy. And then occasional volunteer work. We kind of talked about this. Visiting during off hours, helping people around their house, delivering items, providing transportation. Here's a picture of the form that's on that back table, although that's a very fuzzy picture. It is a picture of the form that's on that back table. If you get a chance, fill it out. Let us know what you can do. And then weekly participation, the success is in the details. See that? I used it again. Let all things be done decently and in order. This is like my life verse when it comes to everything but my office. Don't look inside my office. The more detail that you can give me, the better life is going to be moving forward. The better contact that we can make, the more compassionate we can be, the better that we can all be praying. Anybody who looks at that sheet can pray better with more detail. So it's very important. 4 different outreach assignments. Pastor kind of went over this. The New Street assignment. This is what most of them are doing today. They're going out, they're knocking on doors, trying to collect brand new prayer requests. Follow-up phone call. This is somebody will sit in one of our offices with a couple of sheets that we give them. They'll make some phone calls and follow up. We have some specific ways to do that back there. Follow-up mailing. This is generally postcards. Sometimes we do little letters, things like that. But for the most part, it is postcards and then follow-up visits. Brother Dwayne, a few groups went out to do follow-up visits. They take the prayer requests, they read through them, they pray through them, they go and stop and try and make contact with the person. Is this a potential to keep contact with? Are they wanting to shut us down and say, don't come back here anymore? That's their job to figure out on the follow-up visit. The New Street assignments, I do a map and I highlight streets so you know where you're going. Everybody that walked out of here, except for one, I completely forgot to give Mr. Kunkel his. But they all have marked streets on a map, and they go there. They start at the beginning of the street. However they want to do it, I don't even care how they do it, as long as they're detailed in how they do it when I get the paper back. Most of the time, I try and send enough groups that the entire section would get done. Last year I sent 8 groups to 2 streets in order to do the whole thing, and they got it all done during that night. So I try and make sure I send enough groups to do it all. Care team should work through the streets or return the completed map as soon as the streets are finished. Personal notes or remarks should be made at the back of the map as needed. That would be where I left off, so there's nobody, there's no house here, things like that. Notes can include where you started and left off, team members who went on the visit with you, special notes for the pastor or director, which as of right now would be me, map errors or additions. We're using Microsoft Streets and Trips from 2012, I think, and although it has updated, it's still not perfect. So there might be new streets. Hey, there's a new street here that's not on the map. Street might be gone. Whatever the case is, map errors and additions, make sure you note those. Common courtesy. I put on the back table a sheet with all of these on, a bunch of do's and don'ts with community care. And this is more for the teenagers, hopefully, than the adults. Be clean and neat. Enough said. Don't be a cow. Man, some people it drives them crazy when somebody is standing there chawing on gum when they're trying to talk to you. Use a breath mint, tuck it in your cheek, something. Don't be chewing away while you're talking to somebody. Clothes, combed hair, tuck in your shirt. It looks sharper with the shirt tucked in, guys. That's not for girls, that's for guys. It just looks sharper, neater. I like my shirt untucked, but I do tuck it in whenever I go out to visit. Be nice, kind, and personable, good listener, orderly in speaking. Have one person designated to speak at the door. Most of the time, it's not going to be you, at least to start off. You're probably going to have somebody with you that's going to do most of the talking, but make sure one person is kind of designated. A lot of times, whenever I go out with somebody, I'll have them start the conversation, and by the time the conversation is over, I'll be the one speaking, because I'll find something in common with the person, and then I just shut the other person down and I take over. But kind of be orderly in how you do it. We talk that out. Whoever I'm out with, it's usually Dave Trout. He's been my partner for a few years, or my wife. I tell him at the door, well, why don't you start talking this time, and then I'll take over at some point. And we're pretty good. We usually try and find an orderly way to make that transition. And then develop a relationship with them. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I've used this phrase no less than 30 times in the past 2 weeks. It's important to express concern and compassion, because that's the only way they're going to give a rip what you have to say. They're not going to care what you think. So make sure you are developing a relationship with the person as you knock on the door. Don't cross a closed gate. That's a big no-no. If a gate is closed and latched, do not go through. If there's a gate but it's wide open, I'm fine with that, but do not open a gate in order to walk up to a door. Don't walk in grass. That's another pet peeve. Do not walk in somebody's grass. There is some sort of sidewalk, driveway, something, use that. Do not walk in their grass to get to their door, unless they invite you to come over to where they're at working in the yard or whatever. Some people are very sensitive. My next door neighbor, extremely sensitive about their grass, and if somebody walked in their grass, it would aggravate them. They wouldn't care what they had to say. They'd be done. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we're respecting their property. Don't speak loudly between doors. Pastor mentioned this. Don't talk about anyone. You could be 4 houses away, but they could be related. You mentioned, man, that person was so rude, and they might know who you're talking about right off the top of their head and take offense to it. Don't be forceful. Not usually an issue that we have going door to door, but don't be pushy. Don't go inside a house unless there's 2 people and it's absolutely necessary. Obviously, in the day and age that we live in, there's dangers that we have to be concerned about. And We try to avoid going inside. Pastor and I, when we go out together, try and avoid going inside of a house. We've done it. It's been necessary in order to communicate with the person that was there, but we try to avoid it at all costs. Don't criticize or devalue any person request. Had an instance where somebody wanted to get into an argument about creation versus evolution, and obviously we believe strongly in creation, but they believed in evolution and wanted to get into an argument about it. It's not my job to stand at the door and argue creation and evolution. It's my job to show Jesus Christ by letting my light so shine. Don't get into arguments. Covered it. Don't go into arguments over doubtful disputations. It's not worth it. You will never get anywhere arguing with somebody at their door. If you can get them here and get them talking with pastor, get them talking with a Sunday school teacher, way better off. Don't try and argue with them at their door. So sample door knocking. Hello, my name is Brother Dave. I'm here with a program called Community Care. Sometimes I say from Bible Baptist Church. Sometimes I don't even say that. There are times where I just say I'm with a program called Community Care. We're out in the area. Eventually I will say it's from Bible Baptist Church or it's a ministry of Bible Baptist Church. But the initial introduction, I'm trying to get them to understand I'm not there to get them to church. I'm not there to get them to buy something. I am truly there just to get a prayer request. So I'm with a program called Community Care. We're just out in the area meeting people in the community and trying to see if there's any way that we can be of service to them. We can minister to their needs. One of the ways that we do that is that we offer a great prayer chain at our church. And all we would like to do is just pray for you. Is there something maybe that we could pray for you about? Some area of your life that you're struggling with? Maybe somebody you know has some health problems. Maybe you're dealing with some issues. Is there some way that we can be praying for you? And just some sort of small introduction, something along those lines, and just try and get them talking to you. I don't ask for any of their information until I can get them talking to me. If I can never get them to say anything to me, what's the sense in getting their name, their address, their phone number? The big thing is getting them to get me a prayer request. If I can get them to get me a prayer request, I'll get their name. I'll get at least a first name. I might not get a phone number, but I know I have their street address. And if I don't have their street address, I've got the street they're on and what the house looks like. I can get back to that person. I can send somebody back there in order to make contact with them. But I've got to get them talking to me first. So get the prayer request. Eventually then, hey, if you don't have anything going on tomorrow night, we have a great children's program. I see you got 4 or 5 kids running around your house. We've got a great children's program at our church. It'd be awesome to have you bring them over, and they'd have a great time. They get a snack, and they have a game time, and they have a lesson just for their age group. They'd really have a good time with it. That's when, at the end, once I've gotten the prayer request and I've gotten my foot kind of in the door, that's when I start talking about church, if the opportunity arises. I don't try and cram anything down anybody's throat. The more pushy you are, the less chance you have at making a good contact. So we try and get the prayer requests. He mentioned it, take a nap at the door. Get their name, address, phone, and prayer requests as much as lieth within you. Live peaceably with Brother Dave and get as much information as you can. As you establish a relationship, you'll have the opportunity to invite them to church, present the gospel. That's where the Holy Spirit comes into play. Once you've established a relationship, you've got the Holy Spirit residing within you, and that's when you have the opportunity to try and listen to the Holy Spirit and see, maybe today is the day they need to hear the gospel. Maybe today's not the day. Maybe I need to walk away and just try and send somebody else back to talk to them. This is the Holy Spirit working inside of you. This is your chance. As you leave, make sure you give them a brochure. And if you don't get an answer at the door, always leave a brochure. I don't care if we drop 400 brochures at somebody's house by the time all is said and done. We will keep printing them. It's not a big deal. Leave a brochure. Most of the time with a brochure, I leave a church tract of some sorts. We have the Making a Difference tracts down in the foyer. We have the 3x5 card Road to Heaven tracts sitting on this table back here. That's what I put out this year with the Community Care brochures. Leave some sort of tract with the Community Care brochure. This is what the brochure looks like, laid out and fuzzy. I don't know why it's so fuzzy. Bad picture. This is a prayer request form. There's your NAP, name, address, phone, prayer request. Care team, please give me your name. Please, please, please let me know who's knocking on the door. Because if you don't tell me who it is, then in the system I put unknown, and we don't know who has visited that person in the past. Who should we send back? what type of contact it was. Believe it or not, who knocks on a door makes a big difference on who we send back. We spend a lot of time sorting through those things to say, okay, so-and-so made this initial contact, we should probably send this person back to make a follow-up. It is very well thought out. Believe it or not, everybody has a place. We all have personalities, we all have gifts, and we all have a place in community care. Some of the people that walk through the doors on a Tuesday night, we know we need to send them out knocking on doors because they are fantastic at collecting new prayer requests. They make a great connection with people. Some are better at following up, getting more detailed information, trying to get updates on the prayer requests. Some are great at closing out a prayer request, giving the plan of salvation, great gospel presentation. So it is important to know who it is that we're sending out, who it is that collects the prayer requests, things like that. We got all this. You keep the yellow copy for your records. Like I said, turn the other one in. Black tray on the back table back there. It should be there every week. Then the follow-up form. For those who don't knock on doors, we usually send as many as we can to do follow-ups. Man, that's so fuzzy. This is what the form actually looks like, just not that fuzzy. You'll have the person's name and then a detail from newest to oldest of every contact made with that person. So at the very top would be 2 weeks ago we contacted this person. I don't think they're in the system anymore. I think we have siphoned them out of the system at this point. But it would be the most recent contact for that person, clear down to the very first time we made contact with them, whether it was a door knock. We put church visitors into the system throughout the summer. We try and follow up with all of our church visitors through community care, anybody who stops by the church. So however our first contact, whether that was a visit here or we knocked on their door, the whole way clear up through until the most recent contact at the top. Contains all the information. Make sure your name and date are at the bottom. Write whatever results, details. And we skipped this part. I don't know if you heard me say it, but you are not keeping these sheets this year. In years past, we've done that. This year, you are not keeping the sheets. Once the night is over, make sure I get that sheet back. If they weren't home, write not home on it. If they said don't ever visit us again, write that. If you didn't get to it, if I handed you 3 and you only got to 2 of them, on the third one, write did not make it to this house, something, details. Phone calls, very similar. All the follow-ups, they're already familiar with who we are. They know who Community Care is. They know who Bible Baptist Church is. They know somebody who has visited them. A lot of times I reference the name of the person that visited them last. Hey, this is Brother Dave from Bible Baptist Church, the Community Care team. I noticed that Brother Dwayne stopped by to visit you just a couple weeks ago. And he said that your aunt was struggling with some health problems. I was just calling to see if you could give us an update and see what's going on there so we could update our prayer team on that. Word prayer team sounds really cool, which just means whoever's praying through the community care requests. But it sounds neat to use. It's a great tool. Attempt to actually pray with them. Every follow-up, you attempt at the end to be able to pray with them and then make detailed notes. The postcard, most of the people in here won't do postcards, so I'm not going to be too long on that. When you fill out the postcards, just leave them in the black bin or black tray as well. I will get them stamped and mailed. And then the follow-up visit, same thing. Don't stand there and knock on the door for 20 minutes. Something else that drives me crazy. If I'm in the middle of something and I don't want to be bothered, I don't want somebody knocking on my door for 10 solid minutes. Knock twice, walk away. Leave the brochure, leave a track, walk away. Ring the doorbell twice, whatever. But 2 times max, and then walk away. Updates, praying, leave a track, detailed notes. That's it. Let your light so shine before men. Then you see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. All the paperwork every week should be on the back table. I try and keep everything organized in my office as well as I can from week to week, but it gets messed up a little bit. But for the most part, the back table should look exactly like it did when you walked in earlier today. Should have all the forms on it, all the follow-ups I'll have out there ready to go. The hardest part, as you can see at the beginning, is getting people directions if they don't know where they're headed. 90% of us have iPhones or smartphones with maps. That's awesome. The 10% that don't take up 90% of my time in the back, trying to get them there. And I would print out maps for each one, but that's just a waste for all those, the 90% who have the smartphone. So I try not to do that. Any questions? It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. It's simple in thought. Yes?
Were you allowed to offer services like mowing right at the door?
We try not to do that if we can help it, because that's a great follow-up tool if it's possible. We've had situations though, Pastor mentioned on Sunday, he walked to somebody's house, the guy was literally one-armed pushing a mower. And Pastor's like, why don't we send some guys to come do this for you Saturday? Don't stress yourself. We'll take care of this. So there are times where it's going to be obvious that we can handle that. But for the most part, if somebody asked me directly at the door, well, I need help with my medication. Well, I'll tell you what, our pastor's willing to talk to you about that. Why don't you give us a call on the number on this brochure, or get on the website and send us a contact. You can push the bottom of the brochure. It's prayerandcare.com. There's a way to send requests right over it. So people that don't want to maybe talk on the phone or talk to you at the door, it's a great tool, and it's been used. We had it used a couple times last year, so it gets used. So we try not to offer those things at the door, but if somebody does request it, then we try and point it to the pastor and say, hey, why don't you give us a call, and I'm sure he'd be willing to try and help in any way that he can, or send an email through the website or whatever. Yeah, we try not to offer a whole lot at the door, because it gives us the good follow-up tool down the road. Any other questions? It was a good one. That's it. Nice and simple. I went through it as quick as I could. If you do have questions, let me know. I try and be here every community care. I try not to miss any. There are 3, I think, over the summer that I'll be missing with traveling. Team camp. I think my family vacation falls on a community care, and there's one other. I think it's a pastor's conference. I can't remember. What's that? Top 5 trip. It might be the top 5. No, I think I'm going to be back from the top 5 trip for that community care. But there's 3, I believe, that I'll be missing this summer. So whoever takes my place, I'll try and have them as organized as possible before I leave, so you have everything there. All right. That's all I got. So Brother Keith's going to close out the video, and we are going to go to the house, unless somebody else has a question for me. Awesome. Brother Ryan, would you dismiss us in a word of prayer?